Welcome, everybody. This is the Common Good Candidates podcast, where we have conversations with the extraordinary, ordinary Americans who are running for office and living out our democratic principles because they have brought themselves into the arena. And today we get to have a conversation with Joe Salerno, who is running for the U.S. House of Representatives for Congress in the great state of New Jersey. Joe, welcome. So great to have you on the show today.
Rob, thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Hey, Joe, let's begin with the end in mind. It's November 6th. What have you accomplished? What are you proud of? How are you feeling?
Well, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the day after, Rob. It's such a journey. But my first reaction is just to share how realistic that outcome is for us here in New Jersey 2nd. This is traditionally a purple district where we've always had kind of moderate centrists who've represented our district in Congress. So our incumbent has kind of strayed away from those principles. You might recall he was elected as a Democrat. He won by 8 points in our district just 6 years ago, but he changed parties and swore his undying loyalty to Donald Trump, and then kind of maintained his centrist bona fides for a hot second before he then kind of changed every major position he ever had and is now one of the most conservative members of the House. So this is out of character for the district. So I'm extraordinarily optimistic about our chances to prevail. And I think if we get in there, the thing I'd be most proud of is we'll have done something that's relatively unusual. We will have defeated someone who has embraced the extremism that I think kind of pervades politics nowadays by someone who's more of a centrist, and so much more pragmatic and results oriented. And that'll be a wonderful precedent, I think, for districts around the nation. So I think that I'd be extraordinarily gratified on November 6th thinking that we're able to accomplish that.
Yeah. There are so many different options of offices to run for. How did you decide to throw your hat into the ring for Congress? Like, how did you decide to run for the U.S. House?
Well, I'm a first-time candidate, Rob. I have not spent a career in politics. I'm not fully immersed in the ways of a politician. But I am the son of a World War II POW. And when he passed away 2 years ago, and I was working on his eulogy, and I thought about the values he fought for. He was captured in the Battle of the Bulge. I felt those issues are mainly national issues that we're facing. It pervades every office holder.
Yeah.
But that's what's motivated me because I feel like we have gotten away from what are true American principles. We have, I think, perhaps innocently on the part of most people, but maliciously in the way of some leaders, forgotten that what it means to be an American is not about blood and skin and soil and religion. It's about rule of law and equal protection and fundamental liberties to live life as you please. And I couldn't abide the notion that my dad would suffer for 4 months as a prisoner of war, and everyone who's put on a uniform and put themselves in harm's way for our country was fighting for what J.D. Vance calls an was not fighting for what J.D. Vance minimizes as an abstraction.
Yeah.
Our fundamental ideals.
Yeah.
And that's what motivated me. That I want us to remember this is really what our core value set is, and I believe that we need to get away from these calls for fear of being displaced, calls to establish preference among people. and that's my core conviction.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly, if we are successful and get into Congress, it's about rolling up our sleeves and getting to the business of effective compromise to solve some of the big challenges we face.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned that you're not a career politician. This isn't, this is something that's new for you. What's it like running for office? Like, I mean, most people don't ever do what you're doing. Give us a little window. Like, what surprised you? What has frustrated you? Give us a little window into what it's like running for office.
Well, I got to tell you, Rob, it's been so tumultuous. I mean, certainly nationally, the past month and a half or so is unprecedented, and everyone's
Yeah.
aware of that. But I know you have a national audience here in New Jersey. Things have been just as tumultuous over the past year or so. So we had a sitting senator be indicted, now convicted of felonies, and Andy Kim, a wonderful congressman from an adjacent district, put his hat in the ring in the Senate, and did so very much on the premise that we need to change the way we do politicking here in New Jersey. So our established way of nominating candidates and electing candidates in the primary all changed. A tremendous amount of upheaval.
Yeah.
So kind
Yes.
of changes
Yes.
the norm this cycle here. So I'm just taking it as it comes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's extraordinarily hectic running for office. So I've always felt I was a hard worker in business, but I'm working as hard as I ever had, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you mentioned the primary. I have to admit that I had the election results in New Jersey open as a tab on my iPad and on my phone, and I did not close them for a few weeks because you were in a primary with a couple of opponents, and it was a nail biter. You ended up winning by, was 200 some votes?
Well, I was hey, take them where we can get them. It was 450 votes, 443, I think.
Yeah,
But,
out
not
of
that anybody's counting, right?
yes. Oh,
Um,
out of what? I don't 10,000?
37,000.
37,000. See, my numbers are all wrong. I had
So
these
we
tabs
won.
open, but I obviously didn't pay attention to. What was that like? I mean, that must have been an excruciating couple of weeks for you, wondering like, how is this going to turn out?
Well, look, we all have left brain and right brain, right? So the emotional side of my brain was just as concerned as anyone else was, and thank you for paying attention.
I would
So
text you every couple of days to be like, you doing okay, Joe? Because I'm not.
Yeah, I did not rest easy, but the analytical side of my brain knew that that we had won the race by the next morning because the voting trends were clear. As a first-time candidate, our name recognition was low, so it appears they counted the votes first in, first out, and those people who got their vote by mail ballots and filled them out expeditiously and returned them did not swing our way. But as we got our message out over the 5 or 6 weeks towards election day, we did better and better. So we lost the vote by mail by 6 points, but won election day in all 6 counties in the district by 8 points.
Wow.
And it was extraordinarily gratifying that our message seemed to penetrate over time. Ours was the only campaign in the entire state of New Jersey, either party, any level, where we won against a candidate who was endorsed by the county parties. So that's also an affirmation of the notion that people are hungry for a message, and where we did a lot of face-to-face politicking, where we were actually able to hold meet and greet events, we won by 27 points. So I'm extraordinarily energized, and optimistic for the general. We got to repeat that in all 93 municipalities here in New Jersey second.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about your general election opponent. You mentioned him already, Jeff Van Drew. A little bit of a quirky dude who switched parties, was elected, as you mentioned, elected as a Democrat, switched parties to become a Republican, and then kissed the ring of Donald Trump. And I mean, just a major shift. And I mean, and now is one of those absolutely loyal guys to Donald Trump. Tell us a little bit more of what we should know about Jeff Van Drew, and why he should not be a representative of the good people of South Jersey.
Yeah, there is a lot there to unpack, Rob.
Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah.
it when he first changed parties, like many people who change parties, will say his party left him, all right, and
Mm-hmm.
that he didn't leave the party. You know that
Yep.
Churchill has a nice phrase, or had a nice phrase, that some men change party for sake of principle, and some men change principle for sake of party.
Hmm.
Uh, he could plausibly have claimed the former for a hot second, but now if you just look at the bare facts of his voting record, he went when he was elected in 2018. He said, "I am strongly and unequivocally pro-choice, and any efforts to weaken that right will face my fierce opposition." That earned him an F rating from the Susan B. Anthony pro-life lobby. He's now got an A from that lobby.
Hmm.
His first year in Congress, he had a 100% rating with the AFL-CIO. He now has a 0.
Hmm.
Similarly, at a 100% rating from the American Association of Retired Persons, he now has a 0. So he's now among the most conservative in the cohort of Republicans in Congress.
What
So
what
he is nothing like what he was as a Democrat prior.
what happened? I mean, what what happened? What happened?
Well, it's odd. It seems like the only promise that he intends to keep is his promise of undying loyalty forever. I mean, that's a quote to Donald Trump,
Hmm.
because everything else is malleable. Right?
Hmm.
Malcolm X says a man who stands for nothing will fall for anything, and this is
Hmm.
the case here. Um, to me, I don't know what his angle is with Donald Trump and what he expects to gain from that loyalty. Maybe it is just the affection of that very vocal constituency that I believe to be a minority in this
Hmm.
district. Um, it's very difficult to understand, but
Yeah.
certainly what we all should demand from elected representatives is devotion to principle and
Hmm.
courage to defend it.
Yeah.
And that is sorely lacking in the incumbent here in New Jersey second.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Let's talk about New Jersey second a little bit. It's the southern part of New Jersey. New Jersey is one of those states that people have opinions about. People people have a sense of like, what New Jersey's like based on what they've seen on TV, maybe what their experience has been driving through. What should people know about southern New Jersey? What's great about South Jersey?
Well, South Jersey. So I'm a lifelong New Jerseyan.
Yeah.
I'm relatively recent, we call it immigrant to South Jersey. So I grew up 2 counties north of here, which to many proud South Jerseyans makes me Canadian.
Yeah.
So, uh, um, but it is and there's a real pride in South Jersey, and
Mm,
that independent streak is what I think the incumbent simply now is no longer honors.
mm,
But you see it everywhere you go here in South Jersey. There's real community and identity here, um, and it's a diverse area in that as you're on the Atlantic coast, it's heavily tourist driven.
mhm,
But as you go inland, and especially in the Southwest, much more agricultural and post-industrial. Right
mm,
in Cumberland County, a wonderful part just in the middle of our district, where there's cities of Vineland and Millville and Bridgeton, were extraordinarily vibrant areas of industry and manufacturing years ago. And we all think of kind of the northern Midwest as being areas that are post-industrial. But this is an area that desperately needs economic activity that's not correlated to tourism. And that would be a big priority of what we're trying to accomplish here, is to look at some of the initiatives that the Biden administration has instigated with the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act, and the Infrastructure Act, pardon me, to try to drive some of that investment here where it's truly needed.
Yeah. What are the big issues that matter to the people of South Jersey, and therefore are, the issues that you're running on and that you care about?
Listen, issues of affordability, it burdens everyone. It's not South Jersey specific, right? We all feel poorer now, right? It's just the case, right? And even though the macroeconomic news is good, and it really doesn't matter what your income situation is, when your money doesn't buy what it used to, it hurts. So I think an obligation of government to taking steps to redress that is extraordinarily important. And I do go back to economic opportunity. I do feel like going back to those major policy initiatives of the Biden administration is long overdue, right? We can't deny how free markets and deregulation have driven overall GDP growth over decades here in the United States, but we've done a really woeful job of that workforce development and reinvestment that administration after administration had promised. And now really only recently we see some delivery on those long overdue promises. So that's important. But and certainly protecting women's reproductive rights is extraordinarily important to everyone, men and women in our district. You see the real collateral harm of these complete abortion bans. If you're following the issues around EMTALA, where women can't get emergency room treatment in states with these abortion bans, it's truly tragic. And has to be a top priority of Congress, if we can get one that actually functions for a change, to codify Roe to protect those really valuable rights.
Immigration is an issue that matters a lot to us at Vote Common Good for a variety of reasons. And one of the things that we found interesting is that immigration is a top issue for a lot of people, even those who don't live at the in border states. New Jersey is a state that attracts a lot of people. Proximity to Philadelphia, proximity to New York, and job opportunities as a result of that. How do you think about immigration and how it needs to be addressed?
Well, Rob, this is an issue that begs out for pragmatic compromise, right? And this is not really a clash of ideals, right? I think Republicans and Democrats both recognize the need to have an orderly immigration system, right? We really can't have an asylum definition that 2/3 of the globe could qualify for, right? I think people are truly pained when we see new immigrants here struggling, getting federal dollars to support them because we have this chaotic system. So to me, it's so disappointing. It's beyond disappointing that we had a real compromise bill in the Senate, right, from Langford and Murphy and Sinema, only to have it derailed for political partisan purposes by Donald Trump. That that may or may not have been the entire solution, but it certainly would have reflected doing what good we could when we can't do everything we wish, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is something everyone should have embraced. It was clearly a compromise that checked boxes for both parties. And I heard, one Democrat say this was not a compromise on the 50-yard line. This was a compromise on the 10-yard line in favor of Republicans, and yet it's Republicans who squashed that bill. And our incumbent here in South Jersey lambasts that bill as terrible when it's objectively false what he's saying.
Yeah.
Right? It would have done a tremendous amount of good. It was backed by the Border Patrol. And we should have signed that legislation. That should have been enacted. So that's my overall approach.
Yeah.
Right? We should expand legal immigration. We should control the border by what means are necessary. We should fund a process that allows asylum adjudications to happen promptly.
Yes.
We need a path to legalization, legal status for everyone who is here peacefully and productively, especially if you've been here for a long time. I mean, DACA is just really the tip of that spear.
Yeah.
And so it's really so many important aspects of immigration reform all have been left on the side so that we can have partisan conflict on this topic.
Yeah. Yeah. It's frustrating when the priority of people in Congress is to score political points rather than to actually solve problems. Super frustrating. Joe, how's climate change impacting the people of South Jersey?
Well, look, we have a state review going on right now to see just how much of the state will be underwater if we have a 4-foot sea level rise. Right? I don't want to be alarmist on this topic, but it is. You are not alarmist if you simply acknowledge that climate change is real and that human activity is contributing to it, and that we need to take steps to ameliorate it.
Yeah.
My opponent, the incumbent, who is inseparable from Donald Trump, they say climate change is a hoax. It's extraordinarily convenient when you just close your eyes to a problem, then you don't have to take steps to solve it. Look, I believe in energy abundance. I believe in domestic energy production. Well, I tell you, our wind and our sun, and perhaps even geothermal and other sources. These are all domestic sources of energy that we ought to make sure we can develop. We've seen price of solar come down by 90%. Why? Because we as a government leaned into it. We have this quaint notion that if we allow free markets to work, they'll take care of everything. Well, the truth is they would eventually work, right? When the costs are so high that action would be absolutely imperative. We need to have a mix of public and private incentives here to get things moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Joe, we ask voters to use the common good as their voting criteria when they go in and cast a ballot, to not just be loyal to a party, not just think about what's in it for them, but to use the common good as the reason why they vote. And then we ask people that are running for office, like yourself, that if you're elected, you'll use the common good as your governing criteria. Talk to us about what the common good means to you. When you hear a phrase like that, how does it resonate with you?
Well, look, I am a novice historian. So an essential quality of an elected representative, I talked about devotion to principle and courage to defend, but the framers talked a lot about virtue, and I know that, Rob, this is a topic that you're really well versed in, and people tend to conflate virtue in those quotes from the 18th century with the general notion of virtue today. Right, which is about, it's either religious virtue or ethical virtue. They're talking specifically about a notion of public virtue, which is to put the common good over self-interest. Right, so Ben Franklin talked about the common good being providing the most happiness to the most people, right? And there are books on what happiness means. So yeah, it's about our obligation to bring a South Jersey perspective on what is in the best interest of the entire nation.
Yeah.
Right?
Love
So
it.
that is certainly my guiding principle. I am not in this endeavor for vanity or greed, but definitely for the advancement of the common good.
Yeah. Love that. Joe, how do you stay positive in the midst of a chaotic campaign?
I am glad my wife didn't hear that. She gets. I have truly the best political spouse, because whenever I get a little down or ambivalent, she reminds me that we made
Yeah.
this decisions together, and
Yes.
and gets me back to work. So no, look, it's not altogether pleasant. It is a difficult activity. It's great when you're meeting people and actually engaging with voters, but that's a
Yeah.
minority of the job.
Yeah.
So how do you stay positive? I know, like anybody else, right? You keep your eye on the goal, and the goal here is to do to do good for the people here in South Jersey, and that's a worthy endeavor. And hell, people have sacrificed a lot more than working hard for a year and a half. That is for sure. So that's how I try to frame it.
Yeah. I love that. Joe, how can people find you, and how can they help?
Well, look, we've signed up well over 200 volunteers since we won the primary, which is gratifying. So if you are nearby, certainly Joe Salerno for Congress. Thanks for sharing that on the screen. You can sign up there. Look, money matters. Certainly, contributions are welcome. You know, there are so many wonderful candidates across the country, but if you can't get enough money behind your message, no one can hear it.
Yeah.
And that's especially important here in South Jersey, where the incumbent spent 25 plus years as a Democrat. A lot of people know him. They know him as the guy who stood outside the supermarket, or the guy who went to the Eagle Scout dinner, and was a Democrat who had democratic values. We need to be able to communicate what he is today and how we're different from that. So that is just a necessary part of running for office. So those contributions are welcome, and it's the big red button on the upper right of the homepage.
Yeah. And it's, there's a lot of people that donate to people that are running against the real well-known who's who of MAGA Republicans in the Congress, which is good, which is great. Like that, it's fantastic. A lot of those folks don't live in very flippable districts because of gerrymandering and a variety of other things. Your district, Joe, your race, this is a really flippable race. It's a chance to take a Trump supporting MAGA Republican out of Congress and replace him with someone who's very pragmatic and willing to put the needs of people first. And I mean, it's a very flippable district, and it's one that's in a really expensive media market too. So I just really encourage folks to send some money your way, because this is a really important district for Democrats to pick up in this next election.
Thanks for pointing all that out. I absolutely believe in all of the above there, Rob. And I'm looking forward to people paying more attention. It's amusing to me that he is just as outspoken as Matt Gaetz or Lauren Boebert or Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yep.
He's just not as good at it as they are.
Joe, thank you so much for being with us today. I often joke that our candidates for common good are they're a little bit like our kids. We love all of them, and we have favorites. And It's a little bit of a joke there, but you're one of our favorites, and we are rooting for you, and looking forward to bringing our big orange bus to South Jersey and being with you, and looking forward to calling you the next congressman from New Jersey second. So, Joe Salerno, thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Rob. I can't wait to see you and the bus in person.
Yeah. Hey, thanks everybody for listening in on this conversation with Joe Salerno, candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives from New Jersey. Conversations like this happen every Wednesday between now and Election Day here on the Common Good Podcast Network. And as always, you can learn more about Joe and all of our other candidates for Common Good at candidatesforcommongood.com. We'll see you next week.